Hello, thanks for listening to my talk, How to Care for Your Users' Data, 5 Rules of Good Data Stewardship. My name is Daryl Penta. I'm a UX researcher. I work at Google, and prior to life as a UX researcher, I was an academic researcher. I have a PhD in psychology, where my particular research focus was in psycholinguistics. And ordinarily, at a conference like this, including last year's World IA Day conference, I would be giving a talk on a topic where UX research and psychology sort of intersected. But this time around, I wanted to take a different approach and zoom in on collecting and working with users' data. So, collecting UX data, user data is a huge part of my job and a huge part of what I do. But actually, last year I found myself in a position where I was working with a lot of user data. Specifically, I was part of a research team that was looking at how COVID affected employees at Google, and I personally and in collaboration with a team of researchers that I led, processed more than 35,000 user comments. And so I've been a UX researcher for many years, and I sort of gave myself maybe more credit than I deserved, thinking that I guess I kind of felt like I knew all there was to know about being a good data steward, taking care of users' data and respecting privacy. But that experience was really eye-opening in many respects. And so what I'd hope to do with this talk is to surface and focus on 5 sort of top level themes that I got, lessons that I learned from working with that data, in hopes that it might help you if you're in a position where you're collecting user data. So I'm going to dive right in here with rule number 1. And rule number 1 is that it's absolutely critical that you have a clear policy in place. So you need to have a really clear policy in place, and you also need to make sure that you are sharing that at every opportunity with your users. So your users should have easy access to this, and whether it's through email or through links, they should know where to find this. It's also your responsibility to make sure that with a policy in place, that you follow it to the letter. So your users should be able to trust that what you say and what you do will line up. And at a minimum, right, your policy should let your users know how you're going to be using the information that they provide you with, or the information that you're collecting, who in your team or who in your company will have access to that data, how long are you going to keep that data, and who could answer questions if the user had them. So I think these are critical pieces of a policy, and it's an important first step towards having a good practice around working with your users' data. So assuming you have a policy in place, the next rule here, number 2, is to take only what you need. So as part of that, really what I'm suggesting is that you need to know how much is the quote unquote right amount of data to collect before you start collecting the data. And once you are collecting the data, to make sure that you're using all of the data that you're collecting. So these 2 things are really 2 sides of the same coin in some sense. In order to know what the right amount of data is, you actually have to know you have to have a clear research goal in mind. You have to have a clear plan for analysis. And so these things should be the determining factors when it comes to making decisions about how much data you should be collecting. So if you find yourself in a situation where you say, well, maybe we should ask another question on this survey because it'd be kind of interesting to see what people have to say, or maybe we'll add a few more fields in this contact form here because you never know if we'll need it. Those in and of themselves might not be justifiable reasons for collecting user data. And so, assuming that you've made good decisions and you have a good sense that you have a certain amount of data that you do want to collect, you also want to make sure that you're set up to process that data. So you want to make sure that you're respecting your users' time and attention, and the trust that they've given you with their data, by processing that data. So don't collect several thousand responses to a survey, for example, or collect a bunch of data points, and then not do anything with them, right? That's not fair to your users. So I would say these are parts of rule number 2 here. So taking only what you need. With rule number 3, now assuming you've got data, you've collected it, right? You want to make sure that you focus on the signal and on the noise. So somewhat irrespective of what types of data you're collecting, once you start looking at the data, once you start processing it, it's likely going to be the case that you're going to see some themes emerge from the data, right? Or you'll be able to find patterns that will basically tell a certain story with the data you've collected. That's good. That's what you want if you're a researcher like me. It's actually critical to the work that you're going to do. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not sacrificing the minor themes. You're not overlooking the fact that that there may be a different story emerging from some of the data that are maybe less prominent or less frequent. And so I would suggest that it's important to be an advocate for your users by attending to weaker signals, right? By looking at basically all of the information that you're getting. And if you're in a position where you're responsible for sharing your findings or presenting the information that you're getting, make sure that you are presenting the whole story. Give your stakeholders the whole picture by letting them see both the major themes and the minor themes. So rule number 4 is really to plan for hard data. So what do I mean by hard data? Well, I think that if you're collecting data from users, you really should expect to possibly hear and see things that you might not want to hear and see. So consider, for example, that you've asked your users to provide some feedback on a particular say software that your team is building, and in the process of doing so, you hear really negative feedback, negative criticism. You want to expect this in advance. You want to have some conversations with your team about how you'll handle those kinds of responses, and what will you do in that case? Will you respond individually to users who have negative feedback to share? Or what about a case, for example, where you've got a user who might be expressing a need for help, right? A call for help. How will you do that? How will you respond to that user? And what kinds of policies or practices do you want to have in place to make sure that that those cases are also being handled and not simply glossed over? And partly this means setting expectations with your team and discussing these things in advance of collecting data, so that if and when you encounter hard data, you know how it's going to be handled. And if you're not the only person who's processing data, you also want to make sure that other folks in your team who might be looking at this data, that they know the policies and that they know the practices, so that they don't feel burdened to have to come up with their own solution. So in these cases, I would say better to plan for hard data. And finally, when in doubt and at all possible opportunities, it's important to follow the golden rule. So this is rule number 5 here. You want to treat your users' data the same way that you would want your data to be treated, right? And this means remembering that behind every data point, there's a real person, right? That what you're seeing, regardless of the type of data you're collecting, whether it's comment data or behavioral data, click data, it's really an extension of a human. And so, the way you would like to have your data be treated would be the same way that you should be treating it, which means largely approaching it with empathy and with kindness and being humane in the process. So, for example, if you come across a piece of data that you suspect might make your colleague laugh, um, resist the urge to share it for a laugh, because you wouldn't want someone to share your data just to get a laugh. So in these cases, it's basically the golden rules is always a good principle to follow. And so I'll end my 5 rules with that. I am more than happy to answer individual questions about this or to continue the conversation if you're interested. Feel free to reach out by email. And thanks so much for taking the time to listen. I hope this was helpful to you.